My name is Casey Hurley. I worked for 3 years at a law firm in Portland, Oregon, Stoll Reeves. Stoll Reeves is what we referred to as a mid-size law firm. It's actually pretty big, about 200 lawyers in our office with about 3 other offices in other cities. At a firm like that in a relatively large city, we had lawyers that did just about every kind of work that businesses would need. We didn't do some of the kinds of work that individuals would need, like criminal or divorce, those kinds of work, but anything a business would need, including business criminal kinds of work. And so within that firm, there are actually almost like mini firms, specialized areas that people worked in. So I worked in what was called the corporate practice group, corporate finance and securities. Within that group, we had around 25 lawyers who specialized in things like mergers and acquisitions, startup entrepreneur type companies, public companies, and doing their kinds of work, doing filings and things with the SEC, dealing with LLCs in a more specialized way, doing other kinds of business transactions. So we were pretty specialized in that area. On other floors of the building and in other practice groups, you had lawyers who do tax law, lawyers who do estate planning, lawyers who do environmental law, lawyers who do litigation. So you kind of had every type of lawyer somewhere within the firm, but in kind of a pretty specialized way. So when a client works with our firm, if we're working with a large client, they might have lawyers at our firm doing work for them on a very regular basis. But depending on what their needs are at the time, they might have someone in the employment group drafting employment contracts for them. At another time, they might work on a merger, and then they would have lawyers from my group working with them on a merger or some kind of a restructure. A smaller business might use just one area of our firm. So a smaller business that is kind of getting started might employ our firm to do its incorporation documents and kind of get it started and help with a stock plan for employees, just some of those basics. From the law firm perspective, our hope is that as that business grows, then they start to use our services in a lot of areas. How do I find a lawyer? And then how do I know if I'm finding a good lawyer and if that lawyer will be able to help me with the particular kinds of legal needs that I have? And I think the advice is the same advice that we give students in lots and lots of areas, which is network, network, network. The people you know in your network who have had experience with legal advisors are one of the best places to start in terms of finding a lawyer and asking them, is this a good lawyer in this area? Is this someone who has this kind of expertise? And if you know other lawyers who work in a different area, who don't have that kind of expertise, they can be really good sources to help you know what other kind of lawyer you might need to find. So if you have a lawyer in your ward who does divorce law, they're not going to be able to help you with your business. The chances are they have a fairly good idea about who in that same community does do business law work and which ones have good, strong reputations for doing that kind of work. The next question that always comes up, obviously, is fees and cost. How much is my lawyer going to cost? How do the fees work? Typically, lawyers bill by the hour. Some of that is because of tradition. Some of it is because lots of kinds of legal work, it's very difficult to say, here's what it is, and here's exactly how much it's going to cost. That's particularly true with litigation. There's no way to know how long is this lawsuit going to take. What is the other side going to do to us that we're going to have to respond to? So that's why lawyers typically bill by the hour. Billing by the hour has a lot of the same problems that you always encounter if you're going to pay your employees by the hour. The incentive is not to be efficient. So it is important to think about that incentive and what incentives your lawyers have. Most of the time, lawyers operate at a pretty, despite what sometimes people think, lawyers tend to operate at a pretty high level, I think, of ethics and concern for their clients. At least good lawyers do. So you're not going to have the same level of concern as you would with sometimes hourly employees that you're just trying to motivate to show up and get their job done. But you do want to think about that motivation a little bit and what the fee structure is. One thing about using lawyers in your business or in any way is that it is an expense that your business has. So you want to be efficient about that expense, just like you are about any of your expenses. And one way to do that is to communicate well with your lawyer and to be prepared. So when you go to the doctor's office, typically you want to, if you have 3 things that are wrong with you, you know that you want to bring up all of them on that visit. You don't want to go to the doctor today and talk about one problem and then have to visit 2 more times. You know that's going to cost you a lot more money if you have to do 3 doctor visits. The same thing is true with your lawyer. If you can be prepared and have your ducks kind of in a row when you call the lawyer and say, here's the project, here are the things that I need, here are the questions that I have, and lay all of it out, and give the lawyer the information that they need from the get-go. Here are the details, here's the information. Or at least, if you can't do that, in conversation number 1 with your lawyer, find out what the lawyer needs. Conversation number 2, provide everything they need. That's going to be much more efficient. Then the lawyer, when the lawyer is going to sit down to work on your project, they can sit down and work on the whole project versus working on something today, getting a call from you tomorrow and saying, oh, I need to do something else. Dividing it out, drawing it out. It's especially going to cost you more money if the lawyer starts working. So I'll have a client call me and say, I need this contract. I start working on the contract. And then if the lawyer calls the next day to say, oh, also, I need this. Well, then I'm going to have to maybe go back, do some additional research where I could have done that research in the first place, or build some things into the contract where I might have been able to begin with a contract that would have been more appropriate for that client. So it's so much more efficient to provide your lawyer with the information they need. When in doubt, give them more than they need. So the more the lawyer has to contact you with questions, follow up, the more money that's going to cost. So be efficient, think through what you need before you contact your lawyer, but also don't be afraid to ask them about what you need and to let them know that you're sensitive about cost and that you need their help to keep the project as efficient as possible. And ask them what you can do. You might even ask, are there parts of this that I can work on? Are there things I can do that aren't necessarily legal aspects of the project? So some large businesses are much less concerned about costs. And they'll say, here's the contract. You're our lawyer. Go negotiate it with the other lawyer. And they don't care what it costs. They're willing to pay those fees. But for smaller clients, a lot of times it's much better to make sure that you do the negotiation on the business side of the deal. You figure out all those parts and then bring the lawyers in for the legal parts of the transaction.